Now imagine an Africa that is united, an Africa where all Africans have the freedom to do business or work and travel all around Africa without needing visa and possibly a passport. Well, that is the vision and mission of the economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema, should his party win the general election here in South Africa on May 29th. Well, dumelang sanbonani, Demadekwane, and welcome to Africa Diaspora News Channel. I am Lerato Matji from Secunda, South Africa. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence once again. And if you are a new subscriber, a very warm welcome to our family. Now, do remember to like this video and also download the Africa Diaspora News Channel app on Apple Store and Google Play. Now, without wasting any more time, let's get right into the stories. Now, EFF leader Julius Malema has outlined his party's mission and vision should it win the election on May 29th. And one of those visions is to see a united Africa, an Africa where all Africans have free movement all around Africa. They have the freedom to do business, to work, and also just to travel and learn about the African continent without needing a visa and possibly a passport. Now, if you were to look at the African continent and the history behind its separation into countries, that began during the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885. So that was only the partition of the African continent was only done so that European countries would not have to fight over which country colonized which African land. So that might have benefited those countries, Germany, France, and Great Britain, but it has caused conflict in the African continent. So Julius Malema is now saying that if Africans work together, we can actually make magic. And here's Julius Malema explaining more about seeing a united Africa.
I want to know which foreigner took a job from who, because you are here, you are the anchor of the SABC. There is no foreigner who can come here and just take your job and say, from today I'm sitting here. The bosses would have allowed that. So the bosses are white monopoly capital which owns the South African economy. Is the one that brings foreigners into the country, give them jobs because they are going to pay them lower wages. And then from there come to South Africans and say, these people are taking your jobs, and then they make us fight. But Sakina, since when have other Africans never worked in South Africa? Because this Johannesburg was founded by a Southern Africa, not South Africa. That's why the language Fanaka law exists. Because these people came from everywhere to come and mine this diamond that we're enjoying and gold we're enjoying today in Gauteng. So they met from Mozambique, they met from Malawi, they met from Zambia, Zimbabwe. They came together, they couldn't hear one another. They even developed a language called Fanagalo. EFF was not there when that was formed. So it's not true that this is something that is happening for the first time. It has always been. But why would you say, I don't support colonialism and support colonial borders? That is hypocrisy. If you don't support apartheid, you don't support colonialism, you cannot support the invasion of everything that came with these people. The borders were imposed on us. We never had borders. And even without borders, we never encroached in each other's territory. We always knew that here is this kingdom, here is that kingdom. So it's unscientific to say when you do away with the borders, there's going to be an influx of foreigners in South Africa. Let's take Limpopo and Gauteng, for instance. Limpopo is much more poor than Gauteng, but the people have never left Limpopo to come to Gauteng. I come from Limpopo, and every time I get an opportunity, I go home. I've got no intention, none whatsoever, to relocate my home into Gauteng. So it's unscientific to say because people are poorer and we are in a much better, relatively stable situation, they are going to come here and destabilize us. No one wants to come here. We want you, people of Africa, if you want to go and trade in DRC, wake up this morning and just go to DRC and do whatever you want to do and come back without hassle. There must be free movement of people. There must be free movement of goods, and Africans must trade amongst themselves. Because only through the unity of Africa will we earn our seat on the international table where real issues are being discussed. What will Swaziland go and tell China and say, no, Swaziland and China are equal? Equal on what? But once we bring the unity of Africa, both in terms of size of the population and the mineral resources combined, the world will listen to us.
Okay.
We command more than 85% of the world platinum, ourselves and Zimbabwe combined.
So we're running out of time very fast, but I quickly want to touch on the Gaza question and what's happening in Palestine, the EFF's view on this, and of course also South Africa's stance on the matter. Tell us in a minute or less, Mr. Malema.
Well, South Africa is pretentious, the ANC is pretentious. We went to Israeli embassy and said we're going to close this embassy. We went to Parliament, put a motion immediately, and Parliament passed that motion. If the ANC is serious about intervening in Gaza and making sure there is ceasefire in Gaza, why is the ANC not implementing the Parliament resolution that said the Israeli embassy must leave because we cannot share the same territory with murderers? So anyone who supports Palestine and still vote for DA and the ANC must know that they are voting for the genocide in Palestine.
30 seconds. Why should people vote for the EFF?
The EFF is the most honest, hard-working organization that will combat corruption in South Africa, that will jail the corrupt individuals irrespective of who they are, give us free education that is decolonized and make Africans to love themselves. The land is coming, the jobs are coming. It is only the EFF that can stop load shedding in South Africa, and no one else has got capacity. The DA's government in Western Cape, they still load shedding. The ANC's government everywhere, there's load shedding because they've got no capacity to stop the load shedding.
Now, adding on to what Julius Malema has said, and also talking about the conflict that is currently happening in the DRC, former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, has spoken about what could have caused the war that is currently taking place in DRC and what could potentially stop it. And one statement that he has made is that the true leaders that are trying to take power away from France, which currently France still has power over some African countries. So here is the former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, talking to students at the University of South Africa and explaining about some conflicts that are currently taking place on the African continent and how they can be resolved.
A few years back, you remember we had to work with Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, to help them to get sorted out. And one of the things that we found was that there was an agreement with France signed at the point of the independence of Côte d'Ivoire, that France would maintain a military barracks in Abidjan, the capital. And the commander of the French troops, in any situation where he felt the security of Côte d'Ivoire or the security of France was threatened, he had the power, sovereign power, a French general, to take over the public station broadcasting and announce whatever he liked. It's one of the agreements, one of the 12 or so agreements, that not only Côte d'Ivoire, but many countries of the Francophone countries that signed with France at independence. Mali just now has just repudiated all of those agreements. I think there were 11 or 12 of them, which include prescriptions about when you've generated a foreign currency, bank it in Paris. Yeah. And Paris, the French franc then, would guarantee your currency, CFA. Part of what is happening in West Africa, Palisa, as you can see, is a rebellion by young officers against French neocolonialism. It's not only military coups to remove some elected president, but these young soldiers are saying, our politics since independence has respected this junior relationship with France. That must end. So you see the big confrontation between these countries and France. It has to do with ending, like the agreements I've talked about. That you'd have a French general based in Cote d'Ivoire who has actually the power to intervene in Cote d'Ivoire as he liked. So it's an anti-neo-colonial rebellion. It has got this element, you are quite correct, of removing elected presidents. How does the continent deal with that? Well, you know, the OAU has a standard policy, as you mentioned, against illegal changes of government. So the military governments don't get recognized. But we have a particular consequence now, where Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso decide that they are walking out of ECOWAS. Now that can be a positive development. What is to be done? It's not a question that we can answer here. But I think, again, I'm trying to say, it's necessary for us to understand the objective reality. What actually is happening? It's not just young soldiers who are hungry for power and therefore remove this elected president. No. That's why they talk about Thomas Sankara. Sankara took power by coup d'etat. He was a soldier. But Sankara understood this particular issue.
Now, during the former president's speech, I had some thinking, and when I look back at going to high school and primary and learning about history, it is such a disappointment that I did not get to learn about the African history. I did not get to learn about the South African history. The only thing that I got to learn about is how South Africa was during apartheid, but I never got to learn how South Africa was before apartheid. Because I believe that there was an Africa before colonialism. There was a South Africa before apartheid. And unfortunately, we don't get to learn about that. And that goes on to show that our education system is still not controlled by us. And if we're still learning about European history and we're not learning about our history, we will get so many Africans and South Africans fighting, not knowing what they're fighting for because they don't know their history. So if I would give an example, if South Africans would learn about how South Africa was before apartheid, then I guess most South Africans would know what they are fighting for because they would know the potential that this country holds. I mean, as Africa, we have so many mineral resources that we are importing to Europe, but unfortunately, we don't get to reap the seeds of what we are importing. We have Nigeria importing oil, and the former president mentioned that during their intervention and going to Nigeria with other African leaders, Nigerians did mention that they are importing oil, but they just don't know how much oil they are importing. So there is some ripping off that is happening there, because we are so rich in mineral. We are so rich in so many things, and culture, we are so rich in that, but unfortunately we are not gaining anything. We are not gaining much from what we already have and what is already ours, because now we don't have the resources that is needed. And I think if we were to learn our history before colonialism came, and we had to learn our history before apartheid happened, then we would know what we are working towards. Because as much as it looks so far-fetched to think about a united Africa, it still looks so beautiful that there is a possibility of having an Africa that is united, and an Africa that is not only known for wars, for suffering, but an Africa that where, you know, all Africans, as smart as we are, we know that there are very smart, cool people in Africa. Very smart, cool people who can make things possible. And we know that united, we can do so much more. So I have my own opinions and you have your own opinions. You can go onto our comment sections and what do you think? Can you imagine a united Africa? An Africa where we use our resources to benefit us, where our laws are created by us, where our currency is controlled by us, that kind of Africa. So tell us, what do you think? Can you imagine that? And after doing that, like this video and also subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and also download the Africa Diaspora News Channel app on Google Play and Apple Store, and become part of this beautiful family that celebrates diversity and unity while telling you stories that you need to know and learning about ourselves.